Hi everyone, it's Cindy from Cindy's Art. Let's get ready for today's lesson. Today we're going to paint fall pumpkins, and I pulled this picture off of unsplash.com. I have a 4x6 size paper and I've taped it down with washi tape. The other supplies that I've used include Holbein paint, and I've listed the colors here for you. Stop the video so that way you can take a look at them. I'm prepping my palette with colors, and I'm going to list those for you here. And then I'm going to begin to wet down just the pumpkins, not the entire paper, and we'll begin painting. For a glow in this picture, I'm going to lay down the yellow, which is a really own yellow, and I'm going to lay that down first. And then I'm going to add some of the sap green at the top, because the pumpkin has some sap green at the top. I'm going to use a little bit of that marine blue in there as well. And when I'm looking at a pumpkin, I'm not just seeing orange, I'm looking for reds, purples, other colors that might show up in there, and that's what I'm going to add in at the bottom, at the base of this painting. You can see right there where I'm putting in this orange, this bright orange, it is spreading. That's because my paper is wet, not too wet. It's softly flowing through. It's softly spreading out, and that is a paper that is not super shiny wet. It's only got a little bit of a sheen to it when you put the light on it. I'm adding marine blue in at this point. Now later on it's going to turn more towards a green because I'm going to be adding more yellow and orange into that. But I love the blue. I love looking at alternative shadow colors. So I'm going to continue to lay this down, and I'm adding a little bit of that quinacridone scarlet that's on my palette, and I'm putting that red down in the bottom of the base of the pumpkin. Then let that dry completely, bone dry. Take the back of your hand, tap your paper, and if it's warm, it's dry. If it's cold, then your paper's not dry. Then I'm re-wetting this section because I want to add on a glaze, which is adding more yellow color and orange over top of what I've already painted. It is going to make your painting look beautiful. And this is where having good paper will make all the difference in your painting. I'm building up the bottom with quinacridone red plus some of the bright orange and a little bit of alizarin crimson down in the bottom, and I'm going to take that up towards the top, and you could tell I'm going to be leaving some yellow bright colors because that's where the light is, and then I'm going to add in some darker colors towards the back, which is where the shadow is. These lines are wet on wet still, but the paper is drying very nicely. It's not super dry. When I put a little bit of that paint on there for those lines, they're going to soften up naturally. They're going to spread out into the paper. And then I also can help it by taking a clean brush, that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm lifting out some of the areas where I want the highlights to show. So I do that by rinsing my brush out, and then I tap it on the sponge that's there. I make sure it's nice and clean, and then I lift out those yellow highlights. I'm going to repeat the process that I just showed you. I'm going to glaze some color onto this pumpkin, and I'm going to blend it in softly. I'm going to add lines, I'm going to soften those up, and then add in some more darker tones and colors where the shadows are, because I want to have those highlights really show out. One of the ways I can do that is by adding in some nice strong reds down towards the bottom, and a little bit of green if I want to as well, because pumpkins have green in them as well. So I'm just going to continue to glaze and then add a little bit of details in. I'm moving into some of the final stages of the painting where I want to add in just some detail, not a lot. One of my techniques that I'm using right here is I'm drawing that line, and I took my finger and I swiped that thing right off to soften it up. My fingers are clean, they're nice and dry. Try it, try different things. You can use toilet paper, you can use paper towel, Kleenex. I prefer paper towel if I'm going to do that, but right now my finger worked just fine. And one thing I'm remembering in the bottom here is this is a shadow, this is a round subject, so I've got to build in some nice shadows on the very bottom and then to the sides, to the back as well. So I'm just going to continue to lay those in, do the lines, soften it up, and I might even scrape in some color towards the bottom. I'm using the side of my paintbrush if I'm scraping, and there's points in my video you'll see my paintbrush curved. That's because it's not very wet. I have color on it, and in order to add texture onto the pumpkin, I'm doing it right there actually, I am going to take some color, I'm going to scrape it on there. My paper is quite dry. It's not completely dry, but it's quite dry at this point. And the scraping with the side of a brush is just another way to add technique in. You don't want to have a boring painting. So I'm going to move into another section here. You're going to see some of this scraping right there. That brush is sideways. Try it out. Try different ways of holding your paintbrush, ways that you can paint with your paintbrush. Anyway, I'll have to cover that in another video. Use alizarin crimson mixed with burnt sienna in order to make some of the darker lines of the pumpkin where the shadows are going up. Then I glazed over with using a brilliant orange on the right pumpkin, and on the left I used a little bit of gambogi mixed with brilliant orange, and then I used a dry brush. I wet that thing, cleaned it off, and rubbed it on my towel, and then I just brushed over where the highlights are going to be, and it lifts that extra paint right out. I want to show you an idea of what gradation looks like. I used ultramarine blue deep, and then I used deep browns like Van Dyke brown in the background. And if you can see how these paints came webby, it looks like the paint is settling down into the paper. That's gradation. Not all paints do that. So you have to learn your paints and what they do, but mine, that quinacridone orange that's in the top, I bought that through Cindywilliamsmooreartist. I used to hold mine a lot, and that was so much fun. When I put that paint in the background to add it in, it spread out like a little spider's web, and the effect of it looks pretty cool. So I continued on with my painting, just adding in shadows. You know, these pumpkins are on a table, so where's the shadows, where's the lines? I don't need much. And then I am just looking at final details. I'm scraping a little bit of paint on. My paintbrush is a little more dry. One of the ways you could tell is that the tip of my brush is a little bit curved, and it makes it easier for me to just kind of scrape on a little bit of color. It's a great texture, and you could try it on a piece of paper to the side, you know, so you get to look at it before you add it in here. And at this point, I'm just playing. I'm just looking at this saying, what are the final details? I also will have to remove off my masking fluid, which is on the stem of the pumpkin to the left. When I remove that, I'm going to use yellow ochre and a little bit of raw sienna, and I'm just going to add it in a little bit of color. You could use a horizon blue in there too, just to show off a little bit of a highlight. That would be another interesting way to do that. I just want to say thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube members who are so faithful in supporting me and allowing me to be able to share my work. Let me know how this lesson came out for you. You can post your painting on Facebook or Instagram. I have private pages that you can use that for. And I would love to see your work. Give me your comments, give me your ideas. What would you like us to paint next? I hope you and yours as well. You take care, and I'll see you next time.